Good evening. Are you ready to shake things up and start learning Module 5, Lesson 21? This is pretty intense. I can use visual models to add two fractions with related units using the denominators 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, and 12. All right. Get ready to learn some serious fractions. Good luck to you. First one today, draw a tape diagram to represent each addend. Decompose with one of the tape diagrams to make like units. Then write a complete number sentence using a number bond to write each sum as a mixed number. Well, just like our previous Fortnite character said, this looks like it's pretty involved, so let's pay attention. So over here, we're going to say draw a tape diagram, and then we're going to have to decompose one of the tape diagrams to make like units because our denominators are not common denominators. We have to make them common. And then we have to make sure our answer is in a mixed number. And look what we have to do again. We have to make a number bond to help us get to that mixed number. All right? So we have been doing this all along. But now we're going to try a lot of different other things to help us get to those answers. So we have to make tape diagrams, and the tape diagrams, remember, have to be the same length. So if we're going to do 7/8, we have to show a diagram, tape diagram, and we're going to break this up into 8 sections. Okay, so I have a tape diagram now that represents 7/8. And now I have to create a tape diagram for 1/4. And remember, it has to be the same length as our previous one. And we have to break that up into fourths. So there we go. We broke it up into fourths, and 1 is shaded in because it represents 1/4. So, guys, which one of these are we going to decompose? And we want to decompose the larger unit and make them into smaller units. So because this is fourths, we now want to make this into eighths. So we're going to cut this again. So now we have cut this into eighths because we have to try to make these into like units. We have to make these into common denominators. So now we just found the common denominator that 8 and 4 have, and we broke the 1/4, and we made it into eighths because this is the larger unit and we want to make it into smaller units, which is into eighths. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We broke this into eighths, and now since we broke up this 1, now it's into 2. So we have 1, 2. So now this is into 2 2/8. So now we have 7/8 plus 2/8. And when we add these up, we got them now into like units, common denominators. Now we have 9/8. So now we have a fraction greater than 1, which we also can call an improper fraction. And now what we need to do is we need to take this 9/8 and make it into a number bond, because that was the next part of this problem. Use a number bond to get it into a mixed number. And we have been doing this all along. So now let's take 9/8 and take a whole from that. And the whole is 8/8. And what are we left with? We're left with 1/8. So now let's put this together. 8/8 is 1 whole and a fraction. So now we have a mixed number, and our mixed number is 1 and 1/8. So 7/8 plus 1/4 is equal to 1 and 1/8. Okay, we're going to continue the next one using the same directions. We are going to be drawing a tape diagram and then decompose it to make like units. We have to get those common denominators, And then we have to use a number bond because we want to get to that mixed number. We can't leave an improper fraction or a fraction greater than 1. We have to make it into a mixed number. So we have 4/8 plus 2/4. So I have just made 2 tape diagrams to represent 4/8 and 2/4 and shaded them in. And now what we have to do is we have to look at 4/8 and 2/4, and we know that 2/4 looks a little bit more bigger than 4/8, or it even kind of looks like they are equivalent fractions, that they're equal. But nonetheless, fourths would be larger than the eighths, so let's cut the fourths and make them into eighths. So now that I have them into eighths, I now have, if I look at this, what is my new fraction going to be? Well, it's my denominator is going to be 8 because I cut it into eighths like we did here. And now how much is shaded in? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, look at that. They were equal. 2/4 and 4/8 are equivalent fractions. So we have 4/8 plus 4/8, because this turned into 4/8 because we found a like unit, common denominator. And now what we've got is 4/8 plus 4/8. 4 plus 4 is 8. The denominator stays the same. Well, look at that. We have 8/8. And when we have a numerator and a denominator that is the same, this is equal to 1 whole. I hope you're not ready to give up, are you? Keep trying out those tape diagrams. But hey, look at this one. It says we have to use a number line. Oh, I know how much you love those number lines. Don't give up. Keep trying your best. Draw a number line to model the addition. Then write a complete number sentence. Use a number bond to write each sum as a mixed number. All right, just like our Fortnite character said, we need to draw a number line, okay? I know some of you guys get frustrated with those. And then we're going to use a number bond, which we've been doing, to make a mixed number. All right, so here we go. Let's get our number line created. All right, and in that number line, we're going to start with the 0. And then we have to actually say, well, where are we going to end up? Well, we know that we are going to have a mixed number. And so that means we're going to have a fraction greater than 1. And so we're going to kind of split this up, and we're going to have a 1 here and a 2 here. So we have 1 whole to a 2 whole, and we start with the 0. And we're going to put in the middle between 0 and 1, we're going to put a half. All right, and then now how we're going to get to 5/8, okay, because we're adding, we're going to be going to the right, start going towards that 2. So now we have to actually break this up into eighths. So how do we get these halves and turn them into eighths? And how we do that is by cutting them into fourths. Okay, so now I've cut them into eighths, and you can tell that I've cut them into eighths because watch. Don't start at the 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See how this becomes 8/8? So now what we're going to do is we are going to, oops, I forgot to complete the number line after the 1. So, because we have over here, this becomes 1.5. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to locate a half, and a half is right here on the number line. So now we're going to take that half and we're going to add to 5/8. So let's take this look. We go 1, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8. So we're landing here. So it's going to look like, ooh, there we go. That's what that's going to look like, because right there is 5/8. Over here, that 1, that would have been, because we're counting up, that would have been the 4/8. So let me just get rid of that. So now, see how we did that? I just want to make sure. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're at 5/8. Okay, so where did we end up? We ended up on this whole. So we're past the whole, and then this, remember, each one of these is 1/8. So now this becomes 1 whole and 1/8. That's where we landed. Now, boys and girls, we could also look at this right here, this 1/2, and we can go 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, because 4/8 is really, it's equivalent to a half. So we could actually say like this. We could actually now put this into 4/8 plus the 5/8 brought us to 9/8, which it really did, because remember, 8/8 is a whole, and we went up one more to being 9/8. And now what we did is 9/8 is really equal to what we figured out already, 1 whole and 1/8. Because if we took this and we broke it up, 8/8 into that number bond over here, and we're left with 1/8 left over. All right, I know this is tricky, but we're going to continue to persevere and give it our best shot. Okay, we're going to do another number line because I know how much these drive you guys crazy. And we're going to use a number bond to write each sum as a mixed number. Okay, so I started creating a number line to represent 3/4 plus 3/8. All right, so now I know that we're going to be getting into a mixed number, so that means we're going to have a whole and a fraction attached to it. So let's split this up, and let's put let's say a 1 here, and then all the way up to 2 wholes here. And we're going to split it up into fourths. Okay, so let's make this number line into fourths. And how can I figure that out? Well, watch. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/4 gives you a whole. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/4 gives you another whole. Okay? So now, but then over here, it's asking you about eighths. All right? So now we have an unlike denominator, unlike unit. So we got to get this into like units to help us figure this out. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to cut these fourths into eighths. So now I cut them into eighths. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8/8 equals a whole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8/8 equals a whole. So now we've split this into fourths and then into eighths. So now let's put our 3/4 on the number line. Okay, so I just placed 3/4 on the number line, and I'm going to go up 3 because it says 3/8. So when I end up at 3/8, I am going to be right over here. 1, 2, 3. So right here is 3/8. So I'm going to mark that right there. 3/8. That's what I went up. So now I am at 1 whole and an eighth. All right, because we can also say that 1, if we looked where we're actually at, we are actually at 9/8. Because if we started 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8, which is a whole, 9/8. So we are really at 9/8. So 9/8, we take 8/8 out to make that whole, and then we're left with 1/8. So that brings us to 1 1/8. Boys and girls, we're also over here. 3/4 I want you to think of as 6/8, because look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3/4, equivalent fraction to that, would be 6/8. And 6/8 plus 3/8 is equal to 9/8, which we then over here broke it down and got 1 1/8. Solve, write the sum as a mixed number. Draw a model if needed. Oh, so guys, those number lines and those tape diagrams, they're saying if you really need it, try it. But if you don't, and you don't need to have those visual representations out to help you figure the problem, then don't do it. So now we actually have to say to ourselves, here's the larger unit, it's a half, and here's the smaller unit because it's broken up into eighths. What can we do to the half so we can get the common denominator of 8? We need to break down this half into eighths. And how we do that is by cutting the half into fourths. So let's take our half, and we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by 4 to get 4/8. Now we need to take this 4/8 and add it to the 6/8. And now we get 10/8. But because 10/8 is an improper fraction, or a fraction greater than 1, we now have to split up 10/8, okay, using that number bond method. Take a whole out of that. When we take a whole, it becomes 8/8, and we're left with 2/8. Now putting that back together, we have 1 whole and 2/8. But like I always say, boys and girls, looking at that fraction, can we reduce it? Can we simplify it? Does 2 and 8 have any common factors? We want the greatest common factor that 2 and 8 have in common. And the only one that we can really have, because we can't go higher than the numerator, which is 2. So we're going to divide the top and the bottom by 2. And we're going to get 1 whole. And in the numerator, we get a 1. And the denominator, we're going to get a 4. So our mixed number is 1 1/4. 1/2 plus 6/8 is equal to 1 1/4. And our next one, solve. Write the sum as a mixed number and draw a model if needed. All right, again, if needed. So if you need to make a tape diagrams or you need to make number lines, then use those. If not, just solve it. Okay, so look over here. I see 4/12 plus 3/4. And this is definitely the smaller unit because it's broken up into 12 pieces, where this one is larger unit because it's only broken up into fourths. So how can I take 3/4 and get it into 12ths? Okay, because that's what I want to do. I want to get it a like denominator. Well, I would take the fourths and I would break it up into break that fourths and cut it up into more pieces to get to that 12. So if we do that, we're going to be multiplying the top and the bottom by 3. And we get a 9 in the numerator and a 12 in the denominator. And now we can add them. 4/12 plus 9/12 gives us 13/12, which we know is an improper fraction or a fraction greater than 1. And we now need to take this and get it into a mixed number. So let's take this and make it a number bond. So we have 13/12. Let's get a whole. We know it's 12/12, which is a whole. What are we left with? We're left with 1/12. So put this back together. We have 1 whole and 1/12. Now looking at that 1/12, we know it's in simplest form because there's a 1 in the numerator. We can't go lower than that. So our answer to this, 4/12 plus 3/4 is 1 1/12. Wait, whoa. You were going to give up? Please never do that. I always want you to give your best, or I will be coming. You do not want me to come and eliminate you from this math lesson, would you? I wouldn't think so. So give it your best shot, guys. I know those number lines can be scary. Never give up. I believe in you. First problem tonight. Draw a tape diagram to represent each addend. Decompose one of the tape diagrams to make like units. Write a complete number sentence and use a number bond to write each sum as a mixed number. Okay, so please find the mixed number for 4/6 plus 1/2. And I want to see your tape diagrams. And I want to see your number bonds tomorrow. Continuing with number 2 tonight, you're going to be drawing a number line and using a number bond to find that mixed numbers. So to find this answer, but the answer has to be in a mixed number. And I want to see your number line and your number bonds tomorrow. And your final one. You're going to solve this, and you don't need to draw anything. Try to see if you could solve this on your own, and make sure you're creating a mixed number for your answer. And I want to see your work tomorrow. When you feel like quitting, think about why you started in the first place. Well, we know why we started in the first place, because Miss Molbietta wanted you to. But don't you feel better? You definitely did a great job tonight. Never give up and always give your best.